On Saturday, 24th, Russian invaders shelled the center of Kherson. There are dead and wounded among civilians. Good afternoon, this is Henry Keane, and it's Monday 26 and our daily wrap-up show on UATV channel, explaining complex things in simple terms as usual. Terror, hatred, weakness, cowardice, crime. Here are some very simple explanations for Saturday's shelling of the center of Kherson by Russia. Deputy head of the office of the president, Kirill Tymoshenko, reported 58 wounded, of which 18 were severe, and it is also known that 8 people died. The terrorist country continues bringing the Russian world in the form of shelling of the civilian population. This is not a war. According to the rules defined, it is terror. It is killing for the sake of intimidation and pleasure. The world must see and understand what absolute evil we are fighting against, said President Zelensky. The head of the state also published a photo of the aftermath of the Russian terrorist shelling of civilians in the center of the city. We would appreciate some silence while we watch it. In fact, we have nothing to explain here, even in simple terms. Everything is so simple enough, dead simple. Russia shells the city center during the Christmas holidays. Putin killed a few more Ukrainians on Christmas Day. Several more Ukrainians were killed by Russian rockets in the center of the city, from which Putin was expelled by our troops. Putin is offended, and so Putin kills. This brings him pleasure. Exactly as Zelensky said, that's it, that simple. Putin likes to kill. Russian elites like to kill. Russian people who have not yet overthrown the dictator and put him and all his courtier pack of thieves, murderers, and international class scoundrels like Dmitry Peskov, Sergei Shoigu, Sergei Lavrov, and the other oligarchs in prison. And that means Russian people like to kill Ukrainians. Otherwise, the shellings would have stopped long ago. The Russians have everything they need to be free from anyone's will but their own, but one thing they lack. That is the will itself. Today, December 26th, the informal summit of the leaders of the Cooperation of Independent States, CIS, starts in Saint Petersburg. The event will last for 2 days. As the press service of the Kremlin reports, the meeting will take place at the initiative of Russian President Vladimir Putin. As a rule, long policy speeches are not common for such meetings, and media appearances are often limited to a protocol statement by the host of the summit. However, this format allows comparing notes in a calm, relaxed atmosphere and developing long-term approaches to resolving pending issues.
There is no interest of other countries except for Lukashenko and Putin for recreation of the CIS or the USSR 2.0. Most likely, there will be a lot of intrigue again to discuss. Again, there will be quarrels. Lukashenko will be the main speaker, Putin's press secretary. I'm not sure if anything will be signed. All members of the CIS are trying to distance themselves from Russia, the same as the members of the CSTO. In recent months, they have not even taken an active part. They are quietly sabotaging. They are not speaking out, and the media, especially in Central Asia, simply ignore the event as such.
Right. Well, let us just imagine you are the national leader of any of CIS country. So what's to talk about in a relaxed, calm atmosphere during the meeting. It's not an easy choice of agenda's topic, huh? You can, of course, talk about the facts, like since your murdering host invaded Ukraine, he's constantly losing Ukrainian turf to the Ukrainian army. However, that is not an informal topic. It's quite a formal one, actually, and quite personal as well, so better avoid that. Just relax. It's an informal meeting, remember? It means no tuxedo, strike an informal pose, small talk to other national leaders, try to fake a smile, try to ignore the fact you are invited by the murderer. Pretend there is no war in the heart of Europe started by your friendly host. In general, do your best to ignore the fact that you are invited to dinner at cannibals, and do your best to try to distract yourself from thinking about if you are the main course here or just an appetizer. Have fun. I mean, what choice do you have anyway? Ukraine does not want peace, because Ukraine does not want to negotiate with Russia about peace. Thus, Ukraine is responsible for unnecessary prolongation of this war. We all hear that from time to time. What can be said? Institute for the Study of War has answered in the best way possible, and we just can't help ourselves but citing almost all of it word to word. First, negotiations and ceasefires are one of the few options that Russia has to try to break Ukraine's momentum and regain initiative in the battlefield. The West should stop expending resources trying to change a reality it does not control and focus on what it can shape plenty, denying Russia's ability to wage a war against Ukraine. Negotiations, ceasefires, and peace deals are not off-ramps, but rather on-ramps for the Kremlin to renew its attack on Ukraine in the future under conditions that advantage Russia. They are means to the same ends: full control of Ukraine and eradication of Ukraine's statehood and identity.
Russia's leaders seek more weapons and ammunition from other authoritarian regimes, such as Iran. Russia hopes to freeze the war to allow its forces to regroup, rearm, and try to launch a renewed offensive. President Volodymyr Zelensky has proposed to Russia to start withdrawing troops by Christmas as a step to end the conflict, but Moscow has bluntly rejected this. It was Putin who started the war. He can end it today by getting out of Ukraine. Right now, he shows no signs that he is seeking real peace. Jens Stoltenberg, Secretary General of NATO, in his article for Financial Times.
Secondly, Kremlin's intent to control Ukraine will likely outlast Putin by design. Putin is indoctrinating his goals into Russian formal structures, legislation, information space, and society. Point 3. Russian elites largely subscribe to this intent, differing only in their approach. Point 4. Populations' support of the war, populations' explicit or tacit support of the war will likely only grow as Kremlin propaganda intensifies. Integrating Transnistrian and Belarusian militaries will result in dramatically different requirements on NATO. The Kremlin could try to link its territorial gains beyond Ukraine by integrating other territories that Russia illegally occupies, such as Transnistria. This would impose dramatically different military posture requirements on NATO, which would be especially challenging if the US is required to act in the Pacific. Point 6. Constraining Russia's capability to pursue its aggression is the only approach that has changed Kremlin's behavior in the past. All the ground Russia lost in 2022 was the result of forcing Russia to abandon positions. None of it was the result of persuasion.
Ключове завдання усіх нас зараз.
The key task for all of us now, my task, and then of each of our diplomats and officials, is that world support for Ukraine next year not just remains at the same level as this year, but increases. Precisely under those indicators, they are necessary to strengthen our defense operations. This is artillery. We need more guns, shells. These are modern tanks that have not yet been delivered to Ukraine. These are longer-range MLRS, modern and truly effective air defense. The main thing is to speak for Ukraine with one voice and defend our common interest. Everything for the victory of Ukraine. Everything to help our defense.
The United States, Ukraine, and Ukraine's allies should focus on denying the following Russian capabilities, which are essential to Russia's efforts to strip Ukraine of its statehood and national identity: momentum, territory, core military capabilities, offset capabilities, ability to pivot. Risks of escalation with Russia are a constant, and the United States should not self-deter, particularly while the Kremlin is relatively weaker. If the United States chooses to self-deter now, when Putin has limited leverage, it will always self-deter, including when the Kremlin is strong again. Ukraine has crossed many of Putin's supposed red lines, from liberating what Russia constitutionally claims to be its land to attacking the Crimean Bridge. Each time, the Kremlin did not escalate, but rather reshaped its narrative to explain away its losses. What's here to add to it? Just one thing. Please remember this abbreviator, PTVO. It actually stands for peace through victory only. It was Henry Keane and a daily wrap-up on UATV channel. Subscribe on our YouTube in case you want complex things to be explained in simple words directly from Ukraine. Stay safe and tuned.